Okay, so I'm sure, like me, when most of you see the words post-traumatic stress disorder, you consider veterans who suffered due to combat exposure overseas. And while PTSD has a high rate of people who experience combat, not a lot of people experience combat in their lives. And actually, a lot of PTSD is experienced in people who survive sexual or physical assault, car accidents, natural disasters, and catastrophes. Uh, Jen Lee in 2019 describes PTSD as a mental disorder triggered by traumatic events and characterized by re-experiencing negative alterations in mood and slash cognition and avoidance. Basically, what happens is your brain almost tricks your body into thinking that you are reliving the situation again if exposed to certain triggers in your environment. I put a lot of time into researching the symptoms, treatments available, personality and its effect on PTSD, and the diagnosis of PTSD, and hopefully able to bring you the best and accurate information I can. And obviously, when starting with anything, you start at the beginning. Roberts mentions its history in 2019 with descriptions in ancient Greek literature. It's clearly not a new problem, but what has changed is understanding over the centuries. For instance, in the Civil War, doctors considered it only to be something that affected weak-willed men, people who weren't fit for combat anyway and shouldn't have been there. This kind of graduated into a official diagnosis in World War I as shell shock, and then combat fatigue in World War II. Was still the same ideas as in Civil War, just with a more official diagnosis. And these misconceptions have actually translated to today with troubles diagnosing it. A study done by H. Silva in 2019 found that PTSD is highly prevalent among psychiatric outpatients at 20.5%, and especially women at 27.9%, but went almost completely undiagnosed at 97.6%. So the study, they interviewed 200 outpatients, which are people who receive therapy but are still functional enough to live on their own in society. But of those 200 outpatients, they found that 41 of them suffered from PTSD, and only one of them had been previously diagnosed before the study, which shows a huge discrepancy in just people who have it who are actually diagnosed with it. And with all that being said, there are some things that lessen the severity of PTSD symptoms. This next study found 3 attributes that have the highest effect on it. There is self-directedness, which would be kind of maturity, how you handle problems and adapt to your environment. Harm avoidance, people with high levels of harm avoidance would be anxious, afraid of criticism, fearful of their surroundings. And people with high levels of self-transcendence would be altruistic, would put others before themselves, would be creative, and idealist. And overall, they found that in 2019, Caligaro, the leader of the study, found that harm avoidance was the strongest positive predictor of PTSD symptoms and negative predictor of QOL, or quality of life. Self-transcendence was positively related to PTSD symptoms, trait resilience, subjective and spiritual quality of life, showing that kind of the way you viewed the world can change the effect that PTSD had on you. And with all this being said, the last step would be treatment. And treatment's kind of a gray area. It varies from patient to patient, therapist to therapist. Bledsoe brought this up in the discussion in 2019 that it takes months or years for it to develop, and it's generally recommended that no treatment be provided in the first 3 months. And with a disease like that, it can be kind of tricky to start therapy when it takes so long for it to manifest. And I will only be touching on one type of therapy today due to time constraints. The one I decided to focus on is family-focused therapy. Basically, it's a treatment it was done on veterans specifically, but it's a treatment that not only focused on the veterans' needs, but the whole family as well. It was based on the idea that as loved ones' knowledge improved, like their family members' knowledge improved, so would their relationship with the patient suffering from PTSD. In 2019, Danke laid it out this way, that in 3 of 6 studies, PTSD symptoms and family function not only appeared to improve consistently, but also sustained over time, which showed hope for both the patients and the family that life would get better after PTSD. And I'm sure you're all wondering, what does this have to do with the pillars at MSU? MSU describes community engagement as students will recognize the importance of contributing their knowledge and experiences to their own community and the broader society. So hopefully the knowledge you've gained from this speech, we talked about the symptoms of PTSD, treatments, personality and its effects, and the diagnosis, that you will be able to apply this to the stigmas and misconceptions around this disease, and we can move forward as a society. Thank you.